So
All
I'm
right.
here today with Elsie Escobar. Are you in Pittsburgh?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and
Yes, I
I'm
am.
here in Rio de Janeiro. So hopefully technology will be kind to us and we'll have a good
Oh,
connection while we talk.
absolutely. How exciting. That's so fun.
Yeah, it is. So instead of me introducing you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Ask me what I do. I tell them I'm a yoga teacher. That's what I am. That's what I do. And I podcast. And it's because of that podcasting, meaning that I have been broadcasting my yoga classes to the world since about 2006. I got into it before it was so cool, before all the webinars and all the, Skype interviews and all that stuff. So I've been sort of reaching out across time and space for a while. And because of that love, I am in the industry. I do a lot of work with online media. I do a lot of work with podcasters specifically and how to get podcast out and helping podcasters get their shows together and all that stuff. So, but my love is yoga, and I still teach yoga. Not as much as I want, but not because I don't want to. It's just because it's a little bit more time consuming now with my girls. So I've had to sort of give up certain things and add other things to make, ends meet, so to speak, as of now.
So I'm super excited because I think that it's rare that longtime yoga practitioners get to talk about motherhood. For me, it
Yeah.
was a big gap when I had my child of trying to navigate my practice and all that my body went through. And there were very few, the very top yoga teachers that I had were men, and then the ones that I had were women. Most of them hadn't had children. And so
Uh,
I really sought out other long term practitioners who are moms. So I'm really happy that you're going to be able to share some of your wisdom about that today. So, speaking
yeah.
of that, I know you have two young, beautiful daughters, and I'd like to share some of that, their birth experience.
Absolutely. I have a 4 year old, a just 4 year old, and a 13-month-old. And of course, I wanted to do everything all natural, and we very much planned to do that. I was going to the midwife center here locally, and we were very natural people, and we attuned to the rhythms of yourself. And it then turned out my first one was breech. So we tried to do everything that we possibly could to get her turned around. I mean, I did so much research on breech birth that was crazy. I mean, I was doing everything. And finally, because she wasn't turning and it was almost 37 weeks, we decided to do a version. So we were going to go and have her manually turned around so that we could have a vaginal birth.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went to the hospital to have her manually turned around, when the light was shown inside my cervix to see where she was via the ultrasound, they found out that there was no light showing. So at that moment, at 37 weeks on the dot, we were found out that I had an undiagnosed placenta previa. So within 20 minutes, I was told that I was going to have my baby that day and that I needed to have an emergency C-section.
Whoa, I just got the
So,
chills.
yeah. So it was like one of those things where, Randy and I went in there and we were all, we knew that there was a possibility that we would have the baby because the version is a pretty powerful adjustment. So we were sort of open to that, but we did not know that it was going to be so fast. And it was like deer in headlights. And we didn't, we really had no choice because my placenta had petals to it. So it was like a footprint, if you will. It was like a round thing, and then it had these like 1, 2, 3 petals, and one of the petals was covering my cervix.
Mm-hmm.
So for whatever reason, it was missed during the whole first part of the pregnancy, and so I basically had my baby within, I think, it was escalated. It would literally happen within like 2 hours of us getting into the hospital. I had her. And obviously that was not optimal. And we were a little, like, I felt a little bit out of sorts for a while because I never even had a chance to tell her what was happening because we were sort of like this
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. We didn't have because I had also, prepared for a possibility of a C-section happening. So I also had prepared to do the most natural way and the most organic way to do it. And I had meditations and I had all this preparation. There, there was none for now you're having a baby. Like, what? It was literally, we were looking at each other going, is this really happening? Like, it was like we were in candid camera. And then all of a sudden the baby was there and we were like, oh my God. So that wasn't perfect. Um, it was a little bit tough for me. The second birth, I had a VBAC and I wanted to have a home birth. And, I still went to the hospital because I wanted to make sure that I did not have another placenta previa because I heard that it's common. Everything was fine. She was, head down. It seemed like everything was going to go great. And then when I started to get into labor, which was very nice and sweet and soft, and I loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is so great. Because I never even had contractions with the first one. So I had no idea what that even felt like. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, perfect. I felt so wonderful. And it was really easy, like in the nighttime. It was very like just having a little bit of cramps. And all of a sudden my water broke. Like it just exploded and I heard this sound in my head. It was the weirdest thing. It was like boom, and I'm like, what the heck was that? And when I went to the bathroom, there was merconium in my water. So I had to go to the hospital again. But the crazy part about that is that my water broke, and I kid you not, it was like, I don't know, we left the house, that was like 15 minutes. We left the house at 9:15 to drive to the hospital, and May was born at 10:15. She was like that. It was like we were in the car. I got in. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm having this baby. I pushed for 20 minutes, and she was out. It was like the fastest thing. People were like, what? But I had an issue with my placenta again because it did not come out. So it was a natural birth, no drugs, no nothing. She just came out by herself, as natural as possible with all these people yelling at me and whatever. But I still had control of that aspect of it. But then after my baby was born, my placenta did not come out. And they did everything possible to wait for it and everything, and it did not come out. So it was so crazy because then they were telling me that they had to go get it. And then they asked me if I wanted to have drugs or not. And I was like, well, we can try it without, and then I'll change my mind if it does. And as I'm staying there and I started to work on it immediately, it was like, okay, can I have some drugs now, please? Because they were sticking their arms up my vagina. So wow. They had to get in there and wipe it clean. And then the midwife told me, she goes, this is going to be painful because you don't have the bliss of the birth, and we have to get in there and get all the stuff. So I was like, okay, give me the drugs. So then a doctor came in, and they said they were going to give me this drug. I'm not sure what it was. It was some sort of like hallucinogen thing. Like I never went out. It was like sort of like sleeping-ish. And they said, we want to tell you this now because if there is they were afraid that my placenta might be stuck into the scar tissue of my C-section. And so when they were literally going to give me these drugs, and it had to happen right away because, as you know, the uterus starts to contract. So this needs to come out like ASAP. There's like no waiting. And she goes, well, we just wanted to let you know that if we have consent to, if something happens and it's stuck in there, we're just going to have to remove your uterus. And I was, really? Oh, great. Thanks. So my Randy was sitting right there next to me, and we were both like, are you kidding me with this? You're telling me I'm going to just wake up and I won't have a uterus, probably? Crazy. But anyway, they gave me the drug, and they swept me out. Randy said they put their arm like up to their elbow inside of my vagina and took everything out. Wow. But it was okay afterwards. Other than that, I lost a lot of blood. But I was still so high over the birth and I recovered very, very quickly, and I felt fabulous, even with the gigantic, arm inside of me and everything. So, yeah, those were my births. Not all like I planned. But you know what? I was okay with that. I wasn't so much okay with the C-section. I had a really hard time coming to terms with that because I felt I didn't know if I was going to have another baby. I didn't know if I felt like I was robbed of my experience somehow. I tried to be very positive about it, but it really hurt me. It really broke my heart because I felt like I didn't get an opportunity to birth. And it sort of made me feel a little sad about being a woman. Not sad about, but, sort of like, I don't know if I'm going to experience that now. That was a huge loss for me.
What kind of tools did you seek out for that process?
I did not seek out any tools. In fact, I was in denial for a long time because I sort of didn't want to address those issues. It's like I wanted to be happy. I wanted to not accept the fact that I was not okay with what had happened. And it took me a while to even face it because I was so emotional. It's one of those things where I guess you could say it was a little bit of a death for me. And so sometimes, when you have somebody die, you don't really want to talk about it for a while. It took me a long time for me to come to terms with that, for me to be able to read all the natural birthing books that I was so in love with, to hear birth stories. Like I stayed away from watching birth stories because I love them so much and I'm so inspired by them and it's so lovely and I would cry about it and it was so amazing, but I had to stay away. Like it was like I couldn't read about it. I didn't want to know about it. I didn't want to hear how great your birth was. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I think time. It was time. It was really just time that helped me come to terms with it. And for me, talking about it with my mom, I talked with my mom about those feelings. And she was very supportive and she understood. And then I found other women that I was able to chat with about it. And it made me feel very happy. That's how I came to terms with it. And finally, I started to read up a little bit more and I realized that there weren't as many supports. There's not that much support for C-sections as much as I wish that there was, especially for us that didn't plan on it. Mm-hmm. That like I felt like sort of ashamed, like I'm a yogi and I had a C-section. It was like sort of like a secret. And so I felt sort of guilty and not okay with it, like it wasn't enough, and that people would think I did something wrong. I can't believe it. You didn't do it naturally. So, all of that was a little bit challenging for me.